right, so hello everyone and welcome. We are going to start this webinar now. For those who are joining us live and for those who might be watching the recording, today's webinar is Mentoring for True Diversity in STEM. My name is Daniela Bernal. I am Associate Director of Member Services at SACNAS, and I am joined today by Emily Pavlik, Student Programs Coordinator at SACNAS, and we will be moderating today's webinar.
And before we begin, we'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. SACNAS is a fully inclusive organization dedicated to achieving true diversity in STEM. As the nation's largest multicultural and multidisciplinary STEM diversity organization, SACNAS creates space where all members, volunteers, and partners feel they belong and can embrace their intersectional identities. SACNAS is based out of California, which is the original homelands to over 200 tribal nations, bands, and rancherias of Native American indigenous people. And we'd like to take the time to acknowledge the original caretakers of the lands which we all live and work and honor the rich culture of the indigenous people across the country. You'll see in the chat in just a second a link to nativeland.ca where you can learn more about the lands you reside in, visit, and are around. And feel free in the chat to share where you are joining us from today. Today's webinar is an opportunity to discuss the enormous topic of mentoring from both the perspective of the mentee and the mentor, what works, what doesn't work, and how we as a community can support mentorship. And who better to help us answer these questions than four award-winning SACNAS mentors.
So our panel today, and who you'll see on your screen now, are SACNAS 2023 Outstanding Mentor Awardees. These mentors were nominated from the SACNAS community for their outstanding and exceptional contributions to mentoring the next generation of diverse STEM students and SACNistas. We're super honored and excited to have them today. Before we dive into the bulk of this webinar, which is Q&A of these amazing mentors, we're going to have them briefly introduce themselves. In the meantime, you are welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. I see Emiliano already got started. If you want to share your name and where you're coming from. You can also begin submitting questions via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you submitted a question when you registered for the webinar, we have those as well. So you don't need to resubmit if you don't want to, but if you think of other questions, please feel free. So let's get started with intros. If we can start with our outstanding research and professional mentor, Dr. Giovanna Guerrero Medina. Welcome.
Hi everybody. It's such an honor being here, and thank you so much for SACNAS for organizing this and so many other great events. My name is Giovanna Guerrero Medina. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, although my parents are from different countries in South America. My dad's from Ecuador, and my mom is from Argentina. And I'm a neuroscientist by training. I did my bachelor's at the University of Puerto Rico in Rio Piedras. And then I did my PhD in UC Berkeley in neurobiology. And since then, I've developed into someone who leads programs and develops programs and supports programs to celebrate our identities in science and to support the Puerto Rican community in science broadly defined. I'm the executive director of Ciencia Puerto Rico, which is a nonprofit that celebrates and connects Puerto Ricans in science, both in Puerto Rico and across the world. We do a lot of science communication, science education, and professional development programs for young scientists. One of the programs that I lead through Ciencia Puerto Rico is called the Yale Ciencia Academy. And I think it was through that program, which supports PhD students across the US, that I was nominated for this amazing award. And I think I see a couple of our Yale Ciencia Academy alumni in the participants list, so that's a real honor. I'm also a leader of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at Yale University. I work for the School of Medicine, and I run a number of programs to broaden participation in the biomedical and life sciences here. I run a program called Paths that's for undergraduates that are finishing up and thinking about applying to MD, PhD, and PhD programs. Our application opens tomorrow, so I'll drop that in the chat if any of you are interested. I also support the transition from postdoc to faculty through the Intersection Science Fellow Symposium, and I lead diversity programs at the Wu Tsai Institute, which is focused on interdisciplinary neuroscience research. So I have a lot of different hats, but they're all focused on supporting young people to come into science and health careers and to be successful, to be welcome, to feel that they belong, and to bring their full identities to these careers. So thank you so much for having me.
Excellent, thank you. All those hats, I'm sure, will get people thinking about lots of different questions to ask, so that's great. Next, let's welcome our outstanding college/university mentor, Dr. Jocelyn Lee. Welcome.
Yat Goatsi. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I greeted you in Diné, Navajo, and Keres. So I am of the Diné, Navajo, and Acoma, Laguna, Pueblo, Keres speaking of New Mexico. So She'e Jocelyn Lee, I use she, her pronouns. I'll do my clans, Big Parrot, Laguna, Pueblo, Nishla, Do Totogoje, Bashishchin, Saltwater Clan, Dashiche, or Otto, Little Badger, Dashiche, Acoma, Pueblo, Do Ashii, Salt Clan, Dashinelli. So I'm currently an assistant professor of chemistry here at Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. So I'm fortunate to be doing an amazing job on my homelands and be able to connect with students also from the area. I teach biochemistry and general chemistry courses. I have research students. We study microbes in the environment using both wet lab techniques, but also how to utilize data sets on the computer. So I do also field work, taking students outside. So it's a lot of fun doing all components for research. I'm the co-advisor for our school's SACNAS chapter, and I'm also active with our American Chemical Society, helping with postdocs get to faculty positions, undergrads going on to grad school. So thinking about how to diversify science, especially in the chemistry or computing field, is my interest. A little bit about my academic pathway. I did my undergrad here at Fort Lewis College, so it's a lot of fun to come back here and just be in a beautiful space. I got my PhD at Northeastern University in Boston, so I had to leave home to go and get some extra training, not for my PhD only, but also my postdoc and other jobs that I've held at Cold Spring Harbor National Lab and Howard Hughes Medical Institute. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning your chapter advisor. So if there are any current or potential considering future chapter advisors, that is a great, this is a great person to ask questions about that. Next, let's welcome outstanding Native American student mentor, Dr. Kamula Young. Welcome.
Yeah, aloha. Thank you all for joining us here today. Yes, I am also a co-advisor of the newly reinstated Ilima chapter. So I see aloha, there's a couple of members from our chapter here today. But yeah, so throughout my career, mentors have played this huge role. As an undergraduate, I was a civil engineering major, also double majoring in math. And it wasn't, if it weren't for my mentor, I wouldn't even have thought about going to graduate school, been interested in it. Literally, I had a mentor who walked over someone from the graduate department to my poster and told me to talk to them, and then left me to fend for myself. But it was like those things, seeing things in me that I didn't see, showing me opportunities that I didn't even know existed in my world. And so these mentors really have opened things up for me. And while in my process of getting my PhD in applied mathematics, I realized like there wasn't anyone like me. I had a lot of mentors, but there weren't mentors in math that were Native Hawaiian or even Pacific Islanders. And so, but I had mentors that weren't necessarily like me, but still could help me and help me navigate the whole process of graduate school and everything else. So you don't need to be like fully aligned with your mentor or mentee, as long as you just have a passion and care about them. And so that was a big thing. But when I got my PhD, I became the first Native Hawaiian to get a PhD in applied math. And since then, what I've been doing is trying to increase these numbers. And so I've also co-started Indigenous Mathematicians, which is a community where we're trying to bring together mathematicians who are Indigenous from actually around the world, so that we can have this community see that there's other people like us, so we don't have to feel that it's alone, that we're doing this all by ourselves. So that's sort of where I'm at right now.
Excellent, thank you, and congratulations on the new chapter. We have 2. Okay, so next, I'd like to welcome outstanding Hispanic student mentor, Dr. Teresa Ramirez. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am Teresa Ramirez. I am Mexican American. I'm the first in my family and also first generation to have attended college and graduated. I'm a biologist and physiologist by training. I grew up in the city of Compton, California. So I attended Compton Public Schools, which I thought, okay, I'm going to go to college, but never thinking that I was going to get a PhD. But thanks to the mentorship that I received, I was able to obtain information about graduate school. And how did this happen? Through going to SACNAS conferences. I have been a longtime member of SACNAS for 23 years, and I really give thanks to my undergraduate research mentor and advisor, Dr. Laura Robles, who actually was a person who introduced me to SACNAS. SACNAS has really changed my life and has also taught me to become a mentor and a leader within higher education, but also within the sciences. I'm an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, accessibility, and belonging in the sciences. So I've been involved in various organizations to do community work, such as Latinas Leading Tomorrow, which is a nonprofit organization that is geared to promote sciences and STEAM in general with young individuals, young girls in middle school and high school. And for the last 3 years, I was able to lead a science program for Latina girls from the 6th to 8th grade. And to me, that really represents the ability to help and really promote science, but also be able to serve as an inspiration and role model. Because growing up in Compton, we didn't really have resources. We didn't really have opportunities, but yet having mentors and individuals who really believed in my potential is what got me to where I am. So I always say, straight out of Compton, California, made it to an Ivy League school. How did I get there? I graduated from California State University, Dominguez Hills, located in Carson, California. I took some time off and I did a post-bac program because I had the imposter syndrome of like, oh, I'm not ready for medical school, because that's actually what I wanted to do. But then yet again, I had mentors who motivated me, supported me. And through my post-bac program at the National Institutes of Health, at the National Cancer Institutes, I was able to learn that, hey, I really like science. So then I decided to work for like a year and then pursued a graduate program. And how did I get all this information? Again, through attending the SACNAS conference and actually also believing in my own potential. I'm a proud, like I said, first generation Mexican American. And now as an advocate for DEIB, I run programs, but also through my previous experiences as a postdoc at the National Institutes of Health. I also did a genetics and education fellowship through the National Human Genome Research Institute and the American Society of Human Genetics, which actually allowed me to transition smoothly from basic science research to doing more an administrative work. So you have different opportunities that you can use in the sciences, being in the research lab, but also using it more in administrative or teaching. So that is what allowed me to now be in different positions doing diversity work, like at previously at the American Physiological Society, now doing consulting work. But one thing that I also want to say is that I am the founder and the first president of the Brown University SACNAS chapter, which is still active. I'm very proud of them. And with all these opportunities, I continue to grow, but wherever I am, I continue to mentor students from coast to coast. Why? Because it's really important to really mentor them and provide them with the resources, the advice that they need. And I once was that student that needed that advice. So I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for those intros. We are going to get started with our Q&A. So in a second here, right here, we've got the Q&A etiquette on the screen. Please take a look at that and feel free to submit your questions via that Q&A feature. We're going to get started today with taking a look at what some of our attendees who are wanting to know what it's like to be a mentee would like to know. So let's get started with the first question. What can I do to be a good mentee? We'll open it up for, I don't know, whoever wants to get started first with answering this one. Teresa?
Yes, I think one of the key things to be a good mentee is having good communication skills. How? Do not be afraid to ask questions, but also be able to communicate with your mentor by providing them information of like updates, like this is what I'm doing, or this is where I need your help in. Because if you don't communicate, it's really hard for a mentor to know where you need that help or that advice or that guidance of where you need to take steps for the next steps of your career. So just having good communication skills and not being afraid to ask.
One of the things that I usually talk about with my students is that mentoring is a two-way street. It has to be a reciprocal relationship. So both parties need to be present, need to be engaged, need to be invested. And I think one of the best things you can do to be a good mentee is to know yourself and reflect on what it is that that you need, what type of advice, what type of skills are you trying to get, what type of support are you trying to receive. Being clear about those things yourself, for yourself, will and then putting into place the communication skills, as Teresa mentioned, will make sure that you bring into the relationship the things that are needed in order for it to be successful.
Yeah, I would second everything that was just said. I mean, one other thing going down to communication is that, like, you know, your mentors are your mentors because we care about your success. And so, I mean, there may be things that you're embarrassed about or whatnot, are afraid to tell us, and understandable, but we really do care about you. And like the worst thing that you could do is to ghost us. I've had that happen on more than one occasion, and I'm just emailing, just trying to check in, make sure you're okay. And then if you don't respond and you don't answer, then it really like starts setting off alarm bells, like, is everything okay? And you know, or what's wrong? And so, you know, sometimes just saying, yeah, there's a lot going on, you know, but whatever it is. But again, back to that communication, we're there because we actually care about you. So, you know, we'll be understanding of whatever happens. So yeah, please don't be afraid to do that, and to just let us know, like, you know, I can't really meet right now, there's a lot happening, but maybe we can do something later. Just something as simple as that, without having to go into details if you don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think those are all some of the same points I would consider for the what makes a good mentee. And I think taking a step back of it is this reciprocal relationship, and you know, you may not have that built-in trust, but I think as you go back and forth, get to know each other, then you can start to see that mentors actually really care about you. And then when I'm thinking about being a proactive mentee, you know, you don't always have to come in with things to do. Sometimes it's just nice to chat about a conversation of like, I'm not sure about career goals. How did you decide? So I think some conversations can be shared to highlight or figure out what you want to do. And then there are other types of where you need to get a resume reviewed, or how to apply to grad school, or how to think about grad school. That those conversations can be a little bit different. But the other thing, I think, having patience. Sometimes good mentors have a lot of mentees or a lot of things going on. So don't feel like you're going to bother them. They want to be your mentor but I think sometimes they're a little busy, but they'll make time for you.
Thanks, everyone. So kind of moving then to the next question. What sort of qualifications, attributes, etc. should I be looking for when I'm identifying a mentor?
I think it's always good to get a sense from other students and other trainees, particularly that are at the same stage and maybe have the same interests as you. You know, being a good mentor is something that comes very natural to some people, that some people invest more time than others. So it's not necessarily something that's a guarantee when you come into science. So I think always talking to peers and getting their sense about who might be a good mentor for you is always a good idea. And that said, I mean, I think good mentors for me have always been people that at least when, you know, even if they're busy, they might be very busy people, but when we're connected, when we're talking to each other, they're listening, they're asking probing questions. Sometimes they challenge me. Sometimes I might feel a little bit uncomfortable in the moment, but I understand because there's trust there that it's so that I can reflect on what's happening so that I can come up with new ways of approaching a particular problem. But yeah, so, you know, being someone who's centered on what I'm saying and the problem that I'm bringing and looking for ways of helping me, that's something that I've always appreciated from the people I consider my mentors.
It's also important to keep in mind that like no two mentor-mentee relationships are ever going to be the same. And so like if you're comparing like your relationship with a mentor with someone else, it's going to be drastically different. I mean, sometimes even just with me, you know, some of them I call them like very formal. I call them like Professor so and so. And some of them we're on first name basis. It's just same thing with like if you get an advisor. Some advisors they go to coffee every week and they're just real like chums, and then some is just like very formal, but that doesn't mean that one is any less effective than the other. I've actually had, you know, throughout my career and even now a whole mentors from everywhere. I have mentors that are both within my department or within my campus. I have mentors that are in my field but in a different university, and I even have mentors that are just STEM in general, just someone that's a professional that I can talk to, but having a whole bunch of different types of mentors that I can pull from. And again, all these relationships that I have with them are really different. Some I might just email once or twice a year. Some I might email every other month if I need something, but I have this whole network that I've slowly accumulated for people that I can call on for different cases, different times that I need it. And it's all really unique.
I think that something that's been important for me is having that trust between my mentors, and I have all types of different mentors, but also being able to open yourself in things that you might feel uncomfortable sharing with other people, but you know that your mentor is going to be there to listen and really help you out. And as Giovanna said, someone who's going to challenge you as well, because they're not just there to applaud you on all your successes, but if you're not doing something well, they're going to be able to point that out without offending you, but they want the best for you to prepare in your career or in whatever you're pursuing. So someone who is honest, respectful at the same time, but also who's able to listen to your needs.
I think everyone had the same things I think about. But I guess a different perspective, growing up in like a community based, I always look for someone who is a good team player, who can listen and give critical feedback, but also understand a little bit of my own value system. Because I know if you go to a mentor who may not think about your connection to land and being present for cultural practices that you conduct with your family and community, and they may see that like and judge you because they don't understand that balance in life. So I think that's one thing culturally is a difference for how do you guide someone who has that need to then give advice to help get them in their career path or figure out how to handle any situation, what impacts decisions. So again, like others had said, you know, finding multiple mentors who you can connect with, I think that's probably key. You just don't only have one mentor, you have a lot.
Awesome. So with that, how do you ask somebody to be your mentor?
Sometimes it happens through conversations like at SACNAS. Sometimes you're eating your lunch and you happen to meet an awesome person that you exchange, you know, emails, and through that conversation you start building that relationship that later on you could be like, can you be my mentor? Even when you're having these conversations and there's a connection between the mentee and that person, then that becomes your mentor. And that has happened to me where I was attending different conferences for recruitment and I sat at a table with a bunch of students. And out of all the students, two of them continue that conversation with me. And to this day, I still have served as a mentor to them where they inform me. So through casual conversations or maybe through informational interviews that you had sometimes with people and you start learning information on what they're doing, on the careers that they're pursuing or that they are in that you might be interested in pursuing, those can become mentors that you just ask. It's a simple question. Will you be interested in serving as a mentor for me? The worst that could happen is that they say no, but it's okay because there's many other people that can mentor you.
I think maybe even just like saying the word like will you be my mentor might be a little intimidating, but just starting off these conversations, like when you meet someone at a conference or at a seminar or anywhere, and you talk to them and you realize that you have this great you're bonding, and you say, do you mind if I send you a couple of follow-up emails if I get any? And then that slowly begins to go, and before you know it, just like when you're any relationships with other people, before you know it, you're in so deep. You're like, I guess we're like, let's just make it official. We'll say we're mentor mentees, but just starting off. But do you mind if I send you a follow-up email and just slowly easing that way rather than just dropping the big, will you be my mentor? That might be a way, especially for those that might feel uncomfortable asking those types of questions. But maybe if you have one follow-up and then you realize, okay, yeah, they answered it really well and in a way that I felt heard and whatnot. So that's another way.
Yeah, I my advice is don't try to rush the process. Um, Mentoring is something that should happen organically, and you know, it like Teresa said, it won't happen necessarily with everybody, and that's okay. Um, I think the most important thing is putting yourself out there, trying to make human relations. And you know, for people that are a little bit more introverted, I know I'm a little bit more introverted. The way I frame it in a way that I'm comfortable with it is just being curious about the other person. When I see it that way and when I don't put it into the, you know, with the title of networking, it's easier for me to make connections with people. And once you make a connection with someone, um, yeah, like Kamala said, you know, feel it out, see if there's a connection, see if there's a good match, if you're vibing with them, if they're vibing with you, if they seem interested in what you're doing, and you know, you can take it from there. I think making sure that you once you've identified someone you want to develop a relationship with, um, sending emails, letting them know how you're doing, like if you got a fellowship and maybe they, you know, sent you the opportunity or wrote a letter of recommendation thanking them. That always goes a long way. Just, you know, sending them messages in the holidays. Those are really easy, not very intimidating ways of maintaining a relationship, and making sure that uh, relationship starts to more organically become more of a mentoring relationship.
I have had students come and chat about careers. So that's where I think instead of just formally saying, hey, can you mentor me? It usually is just like, can I schedule some time to talk about, I want to be this in my career, or How can I get study skills? Can you help me with my resume? I think if you have those types of questions or starting points, you can begin to build and figure out if the mentor could work well with you also. Because I think that's one thing. Everyone has different mentoring styles, so you have to be mindful of that process. So I think that's a good way to gauge of like, is this person going to be receptive? Are they going to be engaged? Are they going to talk over me about, you know, your career path? So I like to encourage students to have like some sort of outcome for the first initial conversation as you try to seek out someone. And then like everyone had highlighted, that organic, you kind of get an idea if you can work well with this person. And on the flip side, there are formal programs. I know at the SACNAS National Conference, they have where you can sign up for one-on-one mentoring. And that's more of a, let's get you in the same discipline. I know at our institution, we have peer mentoring. So that's another form. And then again, talking to other students to see who is an ideal mentor that you can connect with.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. We're going to turn it over. Daniela's got some questions that our attendees have about being on the other side of it, being mentors. So Daniela, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you. So I think maybe a good transition between mentee and mentor, although there's a lot of crossover, is this question we received. What kind of mentors do you all remember having, you know, in your, it says in undergrad, but, you know, at any point while you were being mentored? What kind of mentors helped mold you into the awesome mentors you are today? So maybe what kind of attributes, characteristics, things they did that helped you become who you are today?
I had mentors starting from high school that saw my potential because I never thought that I would become a scientist. And they're like, oh, you're good in science and math. There's this program that I'm going to nominate you and you should attend. And that's how it kind of started. So I had mentors who really have seen your potential sometimes when you're not really sure what your potential is, but also I've had mentors who have really taken the time to help me learn and expose me to new opportunities, especially being a first generation Mexican American, the first in my family to know about like, oh, I'm going to college. How do I apply to scholarships? Like really taking their personal time to help me because they know and they could see my eagerness to like learn and be successful. So I think that also motivates a mentor to help mentees. So I've had professional mentors, also mentors who are not professional, who will give me more like personal life advice, and also peer mentors. I learn from my peer mentors as well. So there's like different types of mentors that I've had throughout my career.
Yeah, I think just like sometimes knowing that there's a professional or someone that is interested enough that is available if I need it, having that, because oftentimes, yes, I will have like friends and family that I can count on, but they don't fully understand what it's like to be a scientist and whatnot. So to have someone, you know, in STEM that is just available if I need it, someone to do that, as well as, you know, I had other mentors than just who saw things in me, who saw those opportunities, and that really opened different doors for me. But just knowing in the background that there's people out there if I need it, if it really did go a long way. Just one email and just saying, you know, hey, if you have any questions, just let me know. Knowing that someone cared enough to email me like a professional that I looked up to was went a long way for me.
Yeah, I agree. For me in undergrad, it was particularly important to have people that would put opportunities in front of me and encourage me to like put myself out there. I think when you're an undergraduate, you're still learning. You know, you feel like science is this thing that's up on a hill and it's very far away. And so it can be very intimidating. So having someone who you know pushes you to come out of your comfort zone, who encourages you. I think it can make such a big difference. And I was lucky to have professors that I worked with, that I did research with, that encouraged me to take these risks and put myself out there. And I think if it hadn't been for them, I'm not sure that, I would have gone to Europe to do a summer internship like I was lucky to do, or to, try out hard courses, graduate courses as an undergraduate in neuroscience, which really was what started me on my love for neuroscience. So yeah, look for those special people that open doors for you, and that, push you and probe you to get writing on that essay and get that application submitted.
So I think back to my undergrad experience, and it was a professor of mine that reached out and was like, you seem like you're thinking, you're quiet, and I think you have more capability here. What do you think about research? And I was like, I don't know anything about research. I haven't had any family who did a bachelor's in science. I didn't know what grad school was. I didn't even know like you could become a professor that early on. So he made space to really answer some of those questions that I just didn't even know what to ask, how to ask, or if it's possible. So for me, that impact was huge on just thinking of how, if I'm serving students, what would I want them to, not feel like they can't navigate it, but the college system, but, all the things you can take advantage of as an undergrad. So I think my mentor really opened up a whole new world to me of what it could be to be a scientist. And also just creating that space for me to make mistakes in the lab, because I, had only taken organic one lab at that point of like I can belong in a lab. So the mentor really created a space that I could not, I could fail, but I couldn't be fearful of fail. So I think that's one of the experience I had. And then I always had mentors growing up, again, culturally, just thinking about how they modeled learning. So I still ask for their guidance, because as I think of my role in this world, it's really to take care of Mother Earth. And you get so caught up, I think, in academia and the grind every day that it's nice to take a step back and really ask yourself, like, what am I doing and why? Just so that keeps you balanced. And I think that holistic perspective I always have to fall back on, because there's so many things that I have to navigate, and maybe some of my mentors don't understand why I value that input.
Excellent, thank you. So for our next question, I'm going to try to combine a few, and it's kind of around maybe those like early stages of just being someone's mentor, and tips and tricks for that beginning of the relationship. But the specific question we received is, how often do I meet with my mentee? How much do you let kind of go at the beginning of the relationship? And they say, I want to let my mentee know I'm available, but I don't want to be pushy. So how much do you kind of proactively approach that relationship in the beginning?
I'll go first. I guess for me, it depends on, what are some of their outcomes. If it's just going to be a career focused, or like guidance in different avenues, then I really leave it up to the mentee to um, think about how frequent you need to meet. If someone's asking more career advice, when there's deadlines of like undergrad research, submitting an abstract, applying to grad schools, then I think we meet regularly, because you have to produce a resume, a personal statement, get feedback, practice interviewing. So I think for me, it depends on the outcome. If someone's interested in research and they don't know where to start, I go through a whole like, let's figure out, what you're interested in. I'll show you how to go about the process on looking up programs, where to find them. So it just depends, I think, on, what the mentee wants. And that's how I approach it. Mostly deadline driven.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think communication is very important. And again, being centered on what the needs of the student are. But I do think that, if it's a relationship um, where we have to work together a lot, I do like to set up regular recurring meetings with the student and make sure that I encourage them to think ahead of what they would like to discuss, to send that to me so that I can think about it and come really prepared to the meeting. And also communicating. Sometimes I'll be very busy with work, and if that happens, I'm try to be as clear as possible in terms of what I can commit to and what I can't, what my bandwidth is going to be during a certain time of the month or time of the year, and make sure that they can take that into account with in terms of their plans and in terms of their mentoring. Maybe, if I'm going to be away for a big part of the month when they have a deadline, they can look to other mentors to provide the advice that I'm not going to be able to provide them during that time.
One thing I want to add, and I agree with all of you, is that sometimes since we're very busy as mentors, emails can get lost. So most of my mentees, actually all of them, they have my cell phone number. So if there's something that it's an urgent matter, they'll text me, and I know that that's urgent, that I'll take a look when I get a chance, and they know that I'm busy. So to me, that's a more faster communication through text message, not calling, just a text message, because like I mentioned, emails can get lost, and then I might miss something that's really important that they need my help in.
Excellent, thank you. And I think that might be a good segue to, I mean, speaking of communication, there's a lot of questions about different types of communication between mentors and mentees. There's one in the chat that I think might be a good one about receiving feedback from mentees on being a mentor. And then we received another one that was kind of similar about how mentors can go about apologizing or repairing your relationship with a mentee after you feel like you've made a mistake. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you approach your mentees addressing feedback, apologies, things like that with your mentee?
I think that speaks to the how trust is so important in a mentoring relationship. So trust. In order for trust to be there, you have to be accountable. You have to hold each other accountable, and there has to be good communication. So, if you've dropped the ball and as a mentor, and for whatever reason you weren't available, either because you didn't have time or emotionally available. Sometimes, things happen in our lives that prevent us from really putting our attention on someone else because we have to put out the fires in our own lives. So I think just being honest with the mentee and telling them what happened, apologizing, saying you're sorry if you had made a commitment, and working it out that way, I think goes a long way to mending that trust and repairing that trust, so that you can continue to move forward. I think I answered the second half of the question. I don't know if I answered the first half, but I'll leave it at that.
I actually haven't received any negative feedback. The feedback that I've always received has been very positive, like I'm inspiring, that I have been there. But I always let my mentees know that if there's anything that you don't like please let me know. Or do I say something that is offensive? Please let me know. But sometimes if there's some sort of conversation that I'm not unsure, I'll ask questions in order for me to provide that details on what I can help, what I can advise, and not to make like assumptions on certain issues or situations. So I usually, that's the first conversation I have from the get-go. Like, I don't want to offend you. If I say something that it's offensive, or do you feel that I said something, or I did something that you didn't like, please let me know. But usually I haven't received. But if I was to receive something that I would change, I would be very grateful for that information, because sometimes we do things that we don't realize that might be offensive to others. And that's something that we really want to prevent as mentor mentees.
I guess I'll try to answer the feedback portion. Those are hard conversations to have with the mentee. And I try to frame it as, I'm here to help guide you. It's your decision on what you're going to do with your life and in the moment. But, some news may be very critical of like, maybe you're not ready for the next step. But I think having the mentee understand that you're providing guidance, and it's really up to them. But like, the reason you're providing guidance is to either avoid any potential issues that they may face. Because if you have a bad experience and you're really excited about, I'm just going to go and do this, and then maybe it's going to a competitive program that you're not ready for, and it's a really bad experience. And I wish someone would have told me. And I think those conversations can be tricky to navigate, but as long as you have the trust with the mentee, and I think in usually my beginning conversations with the mentee, building the relationship, I let them know I am human and sometimes I make mistakes, or just as Teresa was saying, like, I might offend you, but let's talk about it and let's have a dialogue so I can do the best for you. And if I can't fill that role, we can find someone else. But we don't really get paid for mentoring, so it's really out of the goodness of our heart to help. And again, that goes, I think, to the whole diversifying our community. Is we want to make sure folks don't encounter things that we've had to, and to be there for people.
Excellent, thank you. I know we are receiving so many really great questions, and I wish we could get to all of them. But I'm going to pass it to Emily for our final question, and then we do have a little bit more information for people in the audience who wanted to use this advice for future opportunities through SACNAS. And there was a question about how can I become a mentor. We're going to answer that. So I'll pass it to Emily for one more question, and then we'll share some next steps.
Thank you. So this is kind of a question that, posed for the mentoring side of it, but, really for our panelists, I think it can be answered from the mentee side as well. It's a little bit of a two-parter. How much of your authentic self do you bring into your mentoring relationships? And have you ever encountered any obstacles in your academic journey due to your identity?
I will start. Yes, I bring my whole authentic self to the relationship. I become vulnerable with my mentees, but also I try to be very understanding and relate to the situations that they're undergoing without any judgment. I have faced many challenges due to the way that I look, or maybe the way I speak. Hablo español, hablo Spanglish, hablo inglés, and it's just really sad to see that that's continued to happen. But I think each situation has made me stronger, has made me more determined, and has given me a reason of why is it that I serve as a leader, as a mentor, to make a difference wherever I go, but also to be inclusive of other people and be open to learning from each other, but not making others feel bad, creating more of a supportive and welcoming environment for all. But unfortunately, like I said, yes, during graduate school, I was told that I didn't have the tools and skills needed to be in a PhD program, but yet I was one of the most um, kind students, and that I could graduate with a master's degree to make a big difference in my community of Latinos. To me, that was like a shocker. But then I said, you know what? I'm here for a reason. I might not know everything, but that is why I'm in grad school, because I'm learning. And one day I'm going to be opening more doors for not just Latino students, for any students who really want to pursue a higher education, and specifically in the sciences. And actually, that's what I'm doing now.
So the first part of the question was about how do you communicate, make sure students feel they belong? Is that
How do you bring like your whole
Your-
or do you bring your whole self to the mentorship relationship?
yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. I think that's so important. Yes, absolutely. You should bring your whole self. Number one, because if you're not your whole self, then you can't really do a good job mentoring. You can't really be fully present, be using all the emotional knowledge, experiential resources that you need to be an effective mentor. I think being your full self also helps model for your students that they can be their full selves. There's nothing worse than feeling like you have to hide who you are because you're entering a lab setting. That's a tragedy for me that unfortunately happens to a lot of people, continues to happen. So yeah, one other thing that I do to be my full self and encourage others to be their full selves is to not just talk about my successes and all the things that have gone great and this great hard won knowledge that I have that I'm happy to pass on to other people, but also talk about the struggles and the times where I made mistakes and where I stumbled, because that helps communicate that that's part of the growing process. We will all make mistakes. We will, it's a learning curve. Nobody comes to grad school as a perfectly crafted scientist. That's part of the process. And so I think talking openly about those things can help students realize that it's okay to make mistakes, that is just part of the process.
Yeah, I agree. Being your true self, and for me, showing my vulnerabilities, showing my weaknesses, really did help connect with my students, letting them know that, I it wasn't all easy for me. You see the final product, you see, a professor, you see a successful professional, but you don't see the things that we've gone through. And so letting them know that I failed in different things, and yet I still ended up being successful. Letting them know that there were times where I felt like crying, and I called my mentor up on the verge of tears, saying, I don't belong here. This is a mistake, and it's okay. And if you feel that way, I'll be here if you call me. If you need to call someone, I'm here. Like, we can talk. So because having that openness, letting them know, and just see that it really did help a lot. And yes, I have experienced different things also throughout, but being true to myself was something that was important on who I was, and what I identified with and everything. And one last note, I do want to acknowledge that I think it's important to have a mentor who's different from your advisor. I think your advisor can be a great mentor, but there's going to be times when your advisor is going to be pushing you to do something and you don't want to do it or whatnot. And you're just going to clash with your advisor. And so to have a mentor to complain about or to help talk sense into you, whatever it is, but to have two different people, just to have, because otherwise you're going to start avoiding if there's a clash, and even if it's a trivial clash, you still want to have someone to talk to complain about or whatnot, just for that one purpose.
So I practice self-reflexivity. It's something I stumbled upon. So it's looking at your own personal experience, thinking about your community, and seeing how that can impact how you guide others or set up a classroom setting. So I always think about a moment when I was learning something new and how or what type of guidance I needed. So I think when you take a step back and think of being in that situation as a student or a mentee, you figure out how you want to frame uh, the relationship or bringing your whole self, because you've had those experiences, you've had those emotions, you found solutions. Some of them may have been positive or negative. Um, but I think sharing that part of yourself is important for the type of mentee relationship that you have. But you have to navigate that because you don't want to invalidate someone else's experiences that they're having. So I think that's where the communication comes into play. And then you don't want to over identify because you don't want to push like, oh, because I did it, it's fine. So I think yeah, bringing your whole self makes the process a little bit more comfortable for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you all. This has been such a great discussion. I just want to give a big thank you again to our wonderful panelists, Giovanna, Jocelyn, Camuela, and Teresa. Can we get one more virtual round of applause for everybody, please? Thank you guys again so much. You guys are our outstanding mentors, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you. So before we officially conclude, we have some resources for you. And if you want to take what we have learned today a little bit further, we have an exciting program to share with you. Emily's going to share really quickly, but before we get to that, I just wanted to invite, for those of you who are not already a SACNAS member, please join us. We have conversations like this all the time, both virtually in webinars or at the conference, as Teresa mentioned. And so if you join us as a member, the link is sacnas.org/membership. There's lots of opportunities to connect with our amazing mentors, peers, role models, chapters, and to participate in several programs, including our new mentoring program, MAS. So I'm going to invite Emily to share a little bit about getting involved with MAS.
Thank you. So we are really excited. SACNAS is so excited to relaunch our MAS program, our mentor activation for students. The MAS program with SACNAS gives more. It is allowing students at all academic levels to connect with professionals from various sectors, STEM disciplines, and areas of the country to develop professional relationships for their academic and long-term success. SACNAS mentors who once were in the same shoes as their mentees will share lifetime experiences, provide one-on-one mentoring for students to reach their full potential in their academic and professional careers in STEM. We are currently inviting student members to apply to be mentees and professional members to apply to be mentors. The deadline is today. This MAS program is going to help mentees receive guidance on areas such as research programs, graduate school, graduate fellowship programs, job search, and much more. The signups are on a first come, first serve basis. We'll be launching our spring cohort pretty soon. But if you are not ultimately selected for the spring cohort, we'll contact you for a future cohort that we have upcoming as well. And for more information, you can check out our website. I think we'll drop some links in the chat here in just a moment. But we hope you consider joining us as either a mentee or a mentor. Take the advice that you received today from this wonderful panel and join MAS.
Thank you, Emily. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this webinar, we invite you to support us to continue providing webinars like this. You can make a donation in any amount at sacnas.org that supports our year-round programs and services. And immediately after closing this webinar, you will see a short survey on your screen. We really appreciate any feedback you can give to improve future programs, provide ideas for future webinars, and things like that. So once again, thank you very much to our outstanding mentors, our panelists today. This concludes our webinar. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.